All right, welcome back to the GORUCK Show. I'm Blaine.
I'm Jason.
And today it's important that we do a proper introduction.
We've gotten your feedback.
So just in case you were wondering, my name is Blaine Smith and I work here at GORUCK.
And my name is Jason McCarthy and I work here too.
You can find us on all the social media platforms, except for Twitter. Jason's not on Twitter.
I think that's, oh, us. I guess GORUCK's on Twitter.
GORUCK is on Twitter, that's true.
The royal we, Blaine. We are on Twitter. Yeah. I mean,
we goose.
I hear so much about Twitter, you know, the presidential thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's not very presidential, but it is a presidential thing, if that makes sense. And it's like, but what is anyway, let's stop talking about Twitter. Twitter's going to die eventually. We all know it. It's going to happen.
Well, it's all
anyway.
It's all, look, the filter that you put between media and you it's your filter. You can do whatever you want. So if you're upset with anything going on Twitter, you can just not have Twitter or not look at Twitter.
Hey,
or whatever you
looky
want.
there.
Isn't that amazing?
Looky there, isn't that amazing?
You've pulled it off. You've pulled it off.
Still just hear, you know, such and such tweeted and stuff. I mean, it's just, anyway, people used to be more gentlemanly or whatever it was. Now it's people tweeting.
What's your favorite of the social media platforms? Because I know, like, you and I both, I guess, all things being equal, would probably just walk away from it completely. But that's not totally fair. I do get some value out of it now. I've learned to kind of embrace social media and use it for what I get out of it. But it's not my favorite thing. I really got into using it at all for purely kind of community and business.
Okay, so let's leverage that.
What's your favorite?
Here's what we're going to talk about today. Then I'm going to get back to this, and it's going to tie in. Our Special Forces roots, Camp McCall, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. We've got a big event this weekend, Bragg Heavy. We just launched the GORUCK 50 miler star course in Washington, D.C. Both leverage our Special Forces roots, okay? So,
thanks for keeping us on track.
Facebook, in terms of social media platforms. Remember when people were predicting the death of Facebook? Yeah, that didn't go so well for those sort of predictors.
That Zuckerberg guy is really smart, as it turns out. Yep.
It turns out, you know, not wearing a suit to your IPO or whatever, and then they say that you don't know how to play the game and do all these things, and, you know, you just keep plugging away at it and do awesome stuff, and look what happens. So
they're playing his game now.
Yeah. So anyway, look, Facebook is a tool for force multiplying what you're doing. Now, the problem is now everybody's a blogger and everybody's got an opinion about everything. And how do you sift through the noise? Mm-hmm. And so look, I've used Facebook the most. The Tough Group has certainly been a huge and influential part of GORUCK's narrative to date. And, you know, I've stayed in touch with a lot of people on that platform through GORUCK. So it's easy for me to, you know, sort of, I would be happy in Jack's Beach with my friends and calling my grandmother and writing, you know, handwritten letters to people, but maybe I'm old school like that. It's an amazing tool. It's sort of a force multiplier tool, which is very much what a Green Beret is designed to do, is to use all the tools and whatever you have at your disposal to sort of achieve mission success. And so Facebook's been that for me. Instagram, I guess I got on that train a little bit late, maybe last year when they started running ads. Now it's lost its purity. Imagine that, Facebook bought it, right? And I've never had a use for Twitter.
Zero revenue when Facebook bought them, by the way. They sold for $1 billion and had never generated a nickel of revenue, much less profit. Pretty good,
so
right?
There's this big debate about, you know, they're buying up potential competitors because, you know, they just want, and you know, Snapchat and the stories and stuff, and Facebook just says, fine, we'll just recreate it on Instagram and on Facebook. And I mean, Snapchat's going to die too, because this is my prediction, and it's not going to be worth anything if I'm wrong. Not worth anything either way. But, you know,
I mean, opinion.
Yeah, it's just, there's a huge network effect. The more people that are on it, the better. So if you're going to play on that platform, you want to go to the platform where people are. And our events have always been what have driven the brand of GORUCK, and the events have existed by, with, and through the people that are primarily on Facebook. So that's been my favorite. And it is also given me a few snake bites over the year, but that's okay. I got plenty anti-venom. If I don't have it on my person, then I just, you know, go somewhere else, recharge up a little bit, and then it's the same thing as anti-venom.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like your analogy of sort of the force multiplier, because when I was at Team RWB, when I started, I had 70 Facebook friends. Like, I basically didn't use Facebook. And then the whole movement was kind of growing on Facebook. It was your ability to like reach out to someone that was really far away until you had these kind of cohesive chapters that were doing things on their own in person. You had to have this ability to sort of connect with people and feel like you had a shared experience with people that even though you couldn't necessarily be shoulder to shoulder with them on a regular basis. And so Mike and the folks there, like, it was building on Facebook. And so I learned to just sort of to use it. And I don't know if I've ever been a huge fan, but I do kind of like the 4 years ago today kind of thing or whatever. I appreciate that feature, but
man, you just got a little twinkle in your eye thinking about.
You know, I got one today, 4 years ago today.
I could tell. What was it?
Jenny and I and the boys all did a Spartan race in Tampa at Raymond James
awesome.
Stadium where the Bucks play 4 years ago today. So it's cool to see that. But to go back to the roots thing, it reminds me using Facebook and leveraging it as a force multiplier and taking a tool that's available and instead of just like being a curmudgeon and brushing it off because like you don't like the new tool, I want to use the old tool. I think a good Green Beret offered a new piece of technology, a new piece of equipment, rather than saying like, I'm just going to stick with my old trusty M16A1, right? You take it, you learn, you see if it's worth incorporating and using. And if so, you should use it. A better radio, a better weapon, whatever the case happens to be, right? Better GPS, better vehicle, better parachute. And so it reminds me of one of my favorite stories, and I've probably told you this. My buddy Casey Finnegan and I were building a fire one time out of kind of wet firewood, and you know we had lighter fluid. And I was like, what kind of self-respecting Green Berets would we be if we used lighter fluid to start a campfire? And he said, what kind of Green Berets would we be if we had lighter fluid available to us and just chose not to use it, right? That's stupid. Yeah. And it was a great point. And I probably have told that story a million times. And I'm sorry if you guys have heard it 900,000 times, but it's a really good point. And if there are tools that are available and you can make use of them and advance your cause, advance your mission, whatever that happens to be, I mean, if you're not using them, it's just shame on you. I mean, saying you're just going to do it the old way. I mean, if you want to go out with your ox and plow and still, you know, take care of your cornfield that way, I mean, that's cool. But don't come crying to me when you feel like you're getting run out of business by the folks that have John Deere and.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue there's a lot of value in understanding those fundamentals, right? I mean,
that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know how to do them. It doesn't mean that you just say, I'm just going to do this the same old way and try to compete on new terms, though.
Yeah, exactly. You have to learn to play the game like in the time that it's being played, or accept the consequences of not. That's the other piece, right? I mean, if you want to make like handmade tables and chairs, and that's your kind of thing, you're just an old school purist carpenter, and you still want to use old manual tools and all that stuff. Like, look. If that's your thing, you can do that, but you just have to understand that you're playing a game where people can buy their stuff at IKEA or they can buy it at other places that are mass producing this stuff. And so maybe you double down and your game is, hey, I'm going to charge 5 times the price for this handmade stuff, but I'm only going to be able to make so much of it. And I'm happy making, you know, 50 grand a year doing this. And that's it. That's all I ever want to do. And if you have the awareness to take that, great. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say, look, I just want to only do things the old way because in my opinion they're better, but then complain that you're not competing in a market that's doing things the new way.
Yeah.
Fair enough?
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. You know what's not fair? Life. You know where I
Indeed.
You know where I really learned that? The start of that journey, Fort Bragg in Camp McCall, North Carolina.
So let me ask you this. You're talking about the STAR course, right? The STAR course is sort of the ultimate story that everyone has from Special Forces selection, or at least it used to be the case. Because you get up in the middle of the night and you've got 10 and a half hours to find your 4 points, which seems pretty straightforward. 4 points, 10 and a half hours, how hard could it be? You know, walking around the piney woods of North Carolina.
Eesh.
But let me ask you a question. When you get your point or your first point in your map or whatever, does everyone in your class have the same route, have the same points?
Absolutely not.
Are some of the routes harder or longer than other routes, do you think?
Yes, and it's sometimes longer is easier.
Oh yes, yeah. Which,
like, I mean, it's sort of as the crow flies, or as the tank might go is probably different than what you would want to go on foot. So this is what you've got. I mean, you've got your ruck, 45 pounds dry. Don't be late, light, or last. Heard that about I don't know, 9,457,000 times, right? Give or take, 10 million. And then you've got water in addition, and you get your point, your MGRS coordinate, your military grid reference system point. It's sort of like GPS, right? And you've got your point, and you've got to go get it within the time frame.
Yeah. So, but just to go back to being fair, I remember sitting around the campfire after the end of the STAR course, just being thrilled that I had passed and I didn't have to do it again, which I was more thrilled that I didn't have to do it again in the moment than I was at the chance that I might someday be a Green Beret. I was more pumped that I just wasn't going to have to go back out the next night at midnight and do it again. But the stories you start hearing from everyone is that like, oh man, how many kilometers was your course? And like, how many draws did you have to go through? And how high was the water that you had to wade through, and this and that and everything else? And it was very clear that, look, it's not all the same. This isn't a game about everything has to be exactly standardized and sanitized. That, look, if you want it, you want it. If you don't, you don't. And, player A may have a little bit of a different route than player B, but you're just going to have to do it. And what's fair is basically irrelevant because you have the points you have, and that's that.
Yeah, there's no sort of, excuse me, cadre, can I have a different point? Right?
If you didn't like your route, you can just do it again tomorrow night.
Yeah, sure. Just fail and do it again. They give you another chance to do it. And, that's... So basically, though, just to sort of peel the curtain back a little bit, there's a lot of draws in North Carolina. So a lot of rivers with a lot of dense vegetation around them, creeks and lakes and stuff like that. And when your point A is, pick where your point A is, and your point B is... how many clicks away?
5 or 6 maybe, who knows?
Yeah, 5 or 6 kilometers, right? And if there's a big giant, big muddy is right in between, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna go around.
Well, you should go.
You should go around. But when you're a young rattlesnake and you like to throw all your venom out at the first bite in life that you see, then what you do is you say, this is easy. 5 kilometers, I got plenty of time, right? I'll just go right through big muddy. Perfect, I'm a fucking genius, And you get there, and they're called wait-a-minute vines for a reason, right? Because you get there, and you meet the vines, and then you wait a minute while you keep meeting the vines over and over and over. And so before you know it, I couldn't believe that this could actually happen when I heard someone tell me that this would happen. But you heard the stories,
right? And you're like, there's no way
that you will
their weapon.
You will ever get in the middle of the draw with all of the thorny bushes and stuff, and that you won't know which direction you're going anymore, right? Like you're walking around, rucking around rather, and you've got your compass and your map and sort of going the direction. You know exactly where you are, terrain association, north, south, east, west. You're very attuned to that at all times. And then all of a sudden, you're in the middle of these wait-a-minute vines, and you don't know where you're going anymore. You start sweating so much more, right? Before you know it, I just remember, you're just alone. You're just by yourself, by the way. There's no team, there's no nothing. It's you and God. That's who's out there, right?
And God is even with you.
Yeah, if God isn't focused on other things in the universe. And before you know it, it's sort of, how do I get out of here? You're just wrapped in your own sort of ball of yarn. So you take your rucksack off, you put it on the ground, and you say, where is maybe the weakest point in these wait-a-minute vines? And you take your ruck and you just throw it that direction. And then you take the half a step forward.
Your rubber duck.
Yeah, your rubber duck, your fake rifle that you have to have with you, and you're just sort of using it like an axe in through the vines. And then you take another step and you pick your ruck up again and you toss it again. And by the time you get out, you just sort of sit there and just, that God hated you in that moment, right? Or that he was teaching you some really...
Or he was teaching you a valuable lesson.
A valuable lesson. Yeah. Or 10 lessons.
Yeah. I think one of the beauties of that process is not just that, look, the shortest distance between 2 points is not always a straight line, which is the thing you hear from the time you're growing up, and you have to relearn that lesson over and over again. And we've talked about it a million times on this show. Is the path from here to success is not a straight line. The path from here to fitness is not like there's no straight lines in life because, like you said, life is not fair and it does not occur in a predictable linear fashion, whether it's the stock market or real estate prices or whatever, the way your kids behave and grow up. None of it is a straight line. So you have to relearn that lesson over and over again. But one of the things I also found so fascinating is that being lost or misoriented just messes you up bad. And it made it clear to me when I thought, look, I got to put a ruck on and do some land nav, and that's going to determine whether or not I pass selection. No problem. I've done some land nav. I generally get it. This won't be that hard. But when you get in that difficult terrain and you get misoriented, it's not the physical difficulty or the intellectual difficulty of plotting your point and dead reckoning or pace counting or any of that. There is a purely sort of psychological and emotional toll that it takes on your body when you feel misoriented and lost. And then you have the pressure of, I'm behind schedule, I'm going to miss my point, I'm not going to find this. All of that stuff starts mounting up, and it plays a big role in your ability to move forward. It's crazy. And I was understanding, I'm like, oh, this is why SAS selection started this way. This is why Delta selection started this way. This is why Special Forces selection does it this way. It seems so benign on paper, but it's just so gnarly when you're out there in the middle of the night alone, misoriented. It's a mess, and you've really got to be able to sort of be mature and calm yourself and get through that. And I think that's what those organizations are looking for, more than your ability to read a map and plot a point and dead reckon and manage your pace count. It's, they design the route so that you're going to have those moments where you're deciding, do I go way around or do I bust through it and take my chances?
I was pretty fast, and I just learned, just take the long way.
Yeah.
It was always the long way with me. Once I paid in some pain.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's never always going to go your way, right? So you're always going to have these moments where you're just questioning all your life decisions that brought you to this one specific instance. And man, I mean,
that's where a lot of guys quit, by the way, though.
Yeah.
Because they start getting way ahead of themselves. So they give you 1 point at a time, by the way.
Yeah.
And life is a little this way. We screw this up all the time. You got to get from here to the next point before you can worry about what the next grid coordinate's going to be.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, you don't know.
It's also not a self-selecting, or it's not a self-correcting course. I mean, you have to show up at the correct point, right? There are other points out there. It's basically like a 10-foot pole with
or a tree
or whatever. But there's something with a code on it that's hanging from that.
Yeah.
Right. You have to write that down, and that's your verification that you were at that point. There's a lot of honor and integrity and all those things, but there's also just the plain and simple fact of you have the correct code or you don't. And so you go from point 1 to point 2, and if you got point 1 wrong, you wrote down the wrong code because you accidentally found the wrong one.
It's all downstream is bad.
You're done.
Yeah.
You did not pass. And so there's just all sorts of opportunities for you to start to question your lot in life. And you can be hard, you can be smart, but you might as well be both.
And committed.
Yeah, that's a big one,
isn't that? That's to me. That's what. And we've probably said this a million times too, so apologies if we're boring you guys, but the factor that really ultimately wins for you is not whether you're hard or whether you're smart, it's whether you're committed, because it's easy to come up with all sorts of reasons why you shouldn't do this or why it's not worth it or any of those things. Most people have the physical capability and the mental capacity to be successful if they're 100% committed. But you got to get through those rough patches where the wait-a-minute vines and the waist-deep water are trying to convince you that you don't need this shit.
Day 20,
go home. You don't need this.
Day 20, your feet look like they're just ground up in a Cuisinart or something after you've been in a bathtub for 10 hours, right? I mean, no thanks, right? But you can either keep going or you can just send your flare up and they'll come pick you up in the pickup truck. They'll say nothing, and you'll disappear from Camp McCall forever.
Easy.
Yeah.
The being misoriented thing reminded me. A lot of folks when we have the show, if we talk about books and things like that, they really like book recommendations and whatever. So here is a book recommendation for you: Deep Survival by Lawrence Gonzalez. One of my favorite books of all time, and it's super easy to read because it's just a bunch of vignettes about people's stories of people surviving in extreme circumstances, but also stories about people who made a lot of foolish mistakes and ended up not surviving. It's sort of this juxtaposition of who survives and why in these different environments. You know, are you paying attention to the signs, or do you just fall to your oblivion on the side of a, you know, avalanche or whatever? Super, super good book. But one of the things that it says early in the book is that one of the most basic needs of a human being is our ability to map ourselves to our environment. And when we don't have the ability to do that, we just basically go crazy. And that's why people with 3 days worth of supplies die within 1 day and stuff, because they get misoriented and it makes them nuts. But excellent book, Deep Survival. In fact, I saw Jala Shaw was reading that book. I think we're going to see her again at Selection this year.
Yeah, I've got some advice for her. It's on your shirt.
There you go.
I mean, you had this note about her last year about
done.
how she had nothing in the tank. I just don't buy that. I mean, I love you to death. I just don't buy that. The human body is engineered for, you reach a rock bottom and you just push through a little more and then it resets itself somehow. I don't know how it is. That's why we're top of the food chain though. There's lots of opportunities for a fresh start. You just got to get there. I mean, hey, I literally will move as fast as I can and I'm never going to quit. I might die, but I'm never going to quit. I mean, that's the deal. Period, the end.
Well, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Regardless, Jala, me and Jenny want to go to Jordan with you and Larry. Maybe we can get Jason and Emily to come. Love you either way. All right, so going back to the roots thing, the reason we want to talk about that today, and well, because we never really know what we're going to talk about until right before the show, so that's just our.
That's not correct. We've been rehearsing this all day.
Whatever. Maybe you have in your head, but there are two things that are sort of going on right now that really made us want to talk about that. One is this weekend, tomorrow actually, is the Joe Warner Fort Bragg Heavy, which is a big deal.
Joe Warner Memorial Bragg Heavy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Big deal in the GORUCK community. It's kind of a family reunion of sorts. It's the mother of all rucks. You know, I think
Dan's baby. He loves it.
Yeah, Dan's sort of the godfather of the GORUCK Heavy. It's his baby. Marcus Franzen will be there. A lot of the sort of the Bragg, the core of kind of that Bragg SF team is going to be there. So that's a big deal. And then the other thing you mentioned already is that we're launching this star course that we're going to debut in DC on May 18th and 19th. It's going to be 50 miles, you know, on foot, 20-pound plate. That's a big deal. And then I guess there's a third thing that has made me really think about this a lot is that
the 50-miler star course.
Yeah, 50-miler star course. Yeah, is that we've talked a lot lately about getting rucking to more people, growing rucking. How do we get more people rucking? You know, how do we get GORUCK as part of that? You know, to more households in front of more people. And one of the things we've done is we've talked to like PR firms lately on this. Like, what do we need to do to not?
I was wondering if I was going to bring this up, and then here you are.
No, I'll bring it up. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't mind at all. Like because I think it's a good news story. So it's not a secret that we want more people rucking, and we want to be able to grow rucking and GORUCK. And one of the things we have to do that is
when it's bigger than cycling, we're going to look brilliant.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right now we're a little crazy. That's okay.
Absolutely, but more importantly, we want it to be bigger than us. Like, we're totally fine with rucking becoming a thing that is way beyond GORUCK. We certainly want to be positioned as kind of on the high ground of having the best gear and the best apparel and the best events. But look, we're totally happy with, looking back 15 or 20 years from now and saying, rucking is this huge thing, and we were there at the leading edge of it, but it's become bigger than us, bigger than GORUCK. But, we've been talking a lot lately about how do we get beyond sort of our current group of kind of members, our community, our current base of customers, if you want to put it that way, and get to new people, to new audience, and convince more people that they should be rucking. And so we've talked to some PR firms and different people to help us, basically reach people that are already kind of GRTs, they just don't know it yet. I think that's one of the ways that we look at it. We're not really trying to convince, people that have nothing to do with this, but there are a lot of people out there that look and smell and kind of act the same way we do, but they just don't know GORUCK, or they don't know rucking yet, or they knew rucking in the military, but they don't realize it can be fun and productive and all that. So we've talked to these folks. It's been great. It's been a really interesting education for me, but one of the things that we just keep saying to these folks is like, we're not going to sell out our roots. How do we do this in a way that's consistent with our background and our heritage and our community, and we're just not willing to chase the next thing just so GORUCK can get some pub. And like one of the things I said to the folks we were talking to today was, look, there was a school shooting, a tragic school shooting yesterday down in South Florida.
Yeah, I had a nightmare. I guess it would have been the opposite of a nightmare. I was like, imagined myself there, like hunting this. I mean, it's like all sorts of stuff. I mean, your just heart breaks for these.
Yeah, but one of the things they were sort of asking us was, well, news people are always looking for credible sources on things, and you guys, you're kind of strong-willed and you have a strong brand. Would you take a stance on certain things? Could we get you in front of certain audiences to speak about things that aren't necessarily about rucking or GORUCK, but would position you and Jason as kind of experts on these things? And my specific comment was, I'm not going on Fox News the next time there's a school shooting to talk about guns, gun control, veterans. I'm just not doing that. We will not use the news cycle, and certainly not sort of tragic events, as a way to position ourselves as experts or advance our brand or any of that. Like, we're just not doing that. And to be fair, I don't think they were pushing us to do that. But
yeah, that's right.
But the conversation came up, and that's what, when we were thinking about what to talk about on the show today, I was like, let's talk about our kind of our roots and why those things are so important to us. Because the more time we spend together, and the more we think about some of our aspirational things for GORUCK and for Rucking, the more we just keep coming back to the roots. And like, that makes me feel good. But it's debatable. Like, can the tree grow really tall while the roots grow really deep? And I would argue that for a tree to be really strong and tall, it has to have really deep roots. And I think that's the way we view things here, is that, yeah, we'd love for our tree to grow big and strong someday, but that's only going to happen if our roots grow really deep. So we're kind of simultaneously trying to...
Yeah, because you can't only have really strong roots. I mean,
right, you could be one of those shrubs in your front yard or your backyard that you just can't pull out of the ground. It's a piece of shit shrub that has these gnarly roots. Like, we don't necessarily want to be that either,
Yeah. Those are the trade-offs that we face. But ultimately, the reason why this hasn't been done, at least not like this before, is because it's really hard. It's hard to walk this line between the Special Forces community and what you're willing to share and how you're willing to share it, and what you're not willing to share and what you're not willing to do. And I see plenty of things out there where I wish someone had maybe reserved a little bit or gone a little bit more. And nobody's perfect, so it's always sort of a case by case. But between the two of us and a lot more cadre, we got a pretty good sense of what feels right for the community and what doesn't. And the big stuff gets more debate internally about what we will, want to do to sort of put it out there.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. It's sort of like an easy, hard conversation. Or, I've heard it phrased a lot of different ways, but there are things that are sometimes hard to say no to at the surface, but they're an easy decision.
Yeah,
and I think that we are imperfect, but I think we've gotten pretty good. And you were good at it long before I showed up, which is one of the things that attracted me to be here in the first place. Is that we're pretty good at the easy, hard decision. You get the carrot dangled out in front of you, or you get sort of the low-hanging fruit or the faster track to prosperity, and however.
Faster track would be for us to become more political, for true consciousness change and true sort of societal impact would fall prey to this sort of just business as usual world, though, where you're either on the left or you're on the right, and we're on neither.
We promise you nuance, right? And
yeah.
I don't believe in the false dichotomy. In fact, I reject it at every opportunity I have. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I am really good at calling bullshit on false dilemmas and kind of false dichotomies and all that, right? I just don't believe in that stuff. There's almost always a third way or a middle path, right? And I think one of the things too that we value so much is that we really think that sort of rucking, and as a subset of movement, activity, fitness within a group or a community is a real solution to a lot of what ails us right now, whether it's societal, political, you name it. And so when someone asks if we're apolitical or if we're bipartisan, I don't want to get involved in politics, but I think what we're offering is, and I mean this sincerely, it is sort of a political solution, or a solution to our political situation, which is that people need to spend more time together, actually face-to-face, knowing each other. Because, by the way, it's really hard to hate someone that you actually know a little bit. You can disagree with them, but you can't just objectify them and demonize them or paint them with a broad brushstroke. And if you're doing that through some kind of physical activity, something that's going to get you moving, get you some vitamin D outside, you're going to be happier, you're going to be healthier, you're going to have more of a shared connection, and you're going to have a much better ability to get past whatever differences you might have. And you don't have to agree, but you can at least respect and appreciate each other's perspectives. So, one of the reasons that I'm not interested in kind of taking a side or dividing the market and going aggressively after it from like a business perspective is that I believe that much in Rucking. I think that Rucking and GORUCK specifically has an opportunity to bring people together and to do more good for people and do more good for communities than just our ability to sell some rucksacks. So I'm not willing to sell out half the market or piss off all the conservatives or all the liberals just so that we can grow the business faster, because I think we have something to offer to all of them. And I mean, what a waste it would be if we did that.
Yeah, what a waste. That's the big. It's not really in our DNA.
It's the longer route, but it's.
Yeah, you want to be a great American brand. It's not a great right-wing or left-wing brand. Like, we want to be a great American brand. One America.
Yeah, so by the way, there's your answer to a lot of folks. I've been pinged, and I'm sure you have too, more than me probably, by folks that are like, are you going to take a position on this? Are you going to weigh in on that and this kind of thing? And I think our community is actually pretty good in sort of understanding who we are at this point. So it's not a lot, but like, there's your answer for anyone who's wondering. Like, no, we're not. Like, we're gonna be pro Rucking. We're gonna be pro community. We're gonna be pro human interaction. And that's a simple, relatively simple, but not easy answer to a lot of complicated problems.
Pro-military, but at the same time, you'll get the nuance from us, which is Special Forces is not just the easy button. These are real people that are out there doing really hard work and asked to do a lot too much. And, everything ultimately could be spun and turned into something, but ultimately, pro-military, pro-special forces, but there's always an additional layer.
Yeah, and I certainly don't mean to say that with the sense that we won't speak our mind or take an opinion or weigh in on things that matter to us. Like, I'm happy to weigh in on the Special Forces easy button thing. I'm glad to go on the record here or anywhere else as saying that the special operations community has been used and abused, and there are way too many politicians, as well as government officials and DOD officials, who just think like we're going to send in advisors or special forces and those kinds of things, as if those aren't real people with real families and and by the way, have been going at this for 15 years plus. Like, I feel pretty strongly about that. I think we screw that up all the time in thinking that we're going to send in advisors and special forces with political expediency to solve problems that aren't just going to be solved that way. I think that's a massive mistake we make all the time. But I'm not going to take one side of the aisle's opinion on it. I'll take the position. I'll stand up for the Green Berets and their families and the soft community. I'm happy to speak my mind on that, but I'm not going to be a shill or a mouthpiece for either political party, because I'm not a registered Republican or Democrat. I'm happy to say that too, by the way. And I think it sucks because Florida is a closed primary state, which means that if you're not registered as a Republican or a Democrat, then you don't have the ability to vote in any primary elections. You can only vote in the general election, which I think is really crappy and should completely be abolished nationwide. But so there's another position for you. Closed primaries should be abolished. I should be able to vote in primaries if I want to, even though I'm not party affiliated.
Yeah, you have to just run for governor and change the laws.
There's another position I'll take. I will squarely take the hypocritical position of someone who thinks our best and brightest should be running for political office and making a difference in this world, but I'm not going to. So yeah, I'm squarely hypocritical. There's been a lot of write-ins for Monster, which I don't think he's actually technically qualified, which is unfortunate. But
yeah, he's not 35 yet,
That's the reason why,
Yeah.
right? By the way, this I've sort of unofficially taken up the mantle as
The guinea pig for
the guinea pig beer drinker, the guy that drinks the beer that GRTs and friends and folks drop by. So
By the way, drop by means donate to the cause.
yeah. So
We
you've
love
seen
you.
me drink the Jenny cream ale and the Jenny beer, which I love. I've drank.
Is that what it's called, Jenny?
Budweiser. Yeah, so it's Genesee is the name of it, but everyone from New York, it's the oldest brewery in New York, they call it Jenny. That's like
All right, cool. Well, that's why you like it so much. You probably love it, don't you?
you know how much I love New York.
Has nothing to do with how much you love Jenny. It's just
Or Jenny, my wife. Right? So this week we have Andy Gator, which is an Abita beer from the great state of Louisiana, Bomber. Also sent to us from a GRT who I think mostly was sending it to Bomber because, you know, Bomber pretty actively solicits beer donations.
Come to find out, there's some pretty crazy stories about what Abita was trying to do to squash competition in the
Yeah,
great state
apparently
of Louisiana.
Abita beer wanted to be the only kind of craft brewery in the state of Louisiana and had this. I didn't know any of that until today, but I'll tell you.
America.
The Andy Gator beer, it's a Hell's Double Bock, which drinks pretty easy. Allegedly, it's got gator blood in it. I'm pretty sure that's not true. But tastes like chicken. But it's 8.0% by volume. So
Boom.
we'll sneak up on you. And Andy behind the camera was saying that it snuck up on him not too long ago.
Yeah.
Andy knows his beer though. Oh, hey, speaking of New York though, we were in New York Monday.
Yeah.
We were actually talking to some PR
Yeah, we got-
people,
yeah.
right? We had a great trip. Flew up to New York from Jack's in the morning. Had meetings. Saw the Michelangelo exhibit at the Met.
It was
on the
awesome.
last day, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And now members,
Now,
kind of
members
a big
at
deal.
the Met.
Members at
Yeah.
the Met. Very high
There's that.
class.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, here's the secret: if you spend more than $100 at the Met, you're automatically
Yeah.
you're automatically.
You
a
know,
member.
so little known fact, or maybe not little known fact, I don't know. But the Met, Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, it's free if you want it to be
Technically
free.
Yep.
I mean, you can, which I did back in the day when I had no money. I went and said, I'm not paying today.
The
And they
suggested
said-
donation is $25.
Yeah,
But I would
they
like to
gave
pay
me
zero.
they gave me a ticket and they said enjoy. I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, all the museums in DC are free, which is why I think everyone who has the means or can save up or do something, figure out a way to get your family, your loved ones to the capital of freedom. I mean, it's Washington D.C. The museums are free. It's great, right? If you just focus on that, you know, go visit all the sites, go to the Smithsonian, go to the wherever. It's National Gallery. It's awesome. But yeah, so this time there were 4 of us after our meeting, and you know, suggested donation $25 a head. So we paid our $100 and actually became members at the same time. It's pretty great.
Getting our culture
Right?
in. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
it's like the kind of country club I love to support. You know.
There you go.
Yeah.
But we were, like, I've sort of, I grew up in kind of suburban Southwest Florida. My family's all from kind of rural Missouri and Illinois. Jesus.
Look at the 8%. Look what it
8%
does.
got me.
You don't even know where you're from anymore.
Holy cow. My mom is going to reach through the phone and smack me. I was born in Effingham, Illinois.
Gator blood.
Yeah, it's the gator blood.
Yeah,
baby.
the gator blood
Holy
makes
cow.
you forget where you're from.
Cut. But I was telling you guys in the Uber in New York, we were going through Queens, and it was just terrible traffic. Remember how bad the traffic was from LaGuardia to Manhattan?
LaGuardia is like a bus terminal. It's
it is
horrific.
there's a bus terminal
It's
there.
horrific there.
So we're stuck in like the Queens traffic, and our Uber driver clearly knows his way around because we were taking a route that I was totally unfamiliar with. We were, trying to,
I liked him. I love New Yorkers. It's just
yeah. This was sort of my point was when I was 18 and I moved to New York to go to school, and I first saw New York City, and I'd never really been to a big city. It terrified me, and I think that I just pushed it away and was like, this is the worst. These people are rude. I don't get it. I don't like it.
it's different.
Yeah, I wanted no part of it. I thought it was like, it's loud and it's dirty and there's no room to breathe and I just want some space. And I really kind of rejected it. And as I've gotten older over the 20 years, whatever it was since then, and I've spent a lot of time there and I've got to know people from there, I actually think now, full circle, that New York City and especially places like Astoria, you know, and Bensonhurst and these, you know, in Queens and Brooklyn. I mean, I think that's the best of America now. And I can't believe that I catch myself saying that. Because, like, I was 180 degrees the other direction at one point in my life. But when I go to New York, and I'm not always the most comfortable there still. I'm not saying I want to, like, pay the real estate prices or deal with the hustle and bustle every day for my family. But when I go to New York now for work and I spend a couple days there, I absolutely love it because people are hustling. They're moving. Like there's diversity. There are immigrants there that are just making something, and they love the American dream. And I love America, and I know that you do too. And when I go and I see what's happening in Queens and in Brooklyn, people with the fruit stand on the road, the cab drivers, the boutiques, it's awesome to see people who are coming from God knows where, all over the world, Croatia, Bangladesh.
We had
Pakistan.
the cab driver who was from Abidjan.
Abidjan, yeah.
We started talking about Abidjan, and when M lived there for 3 years, and this cab was like, yeah, I've been here for 18 years. I miss Abidjan. I mean, it's just awesome. I mean, the American dream it's alive and well. You know, I mean,
you just have to know where to look because those people, man.
It's not on the 6 o'clock news, by the way.
No, I just love it though because these folks, they have perspective. You know, they've seen the world, or they've been from a place where they don't have all the things that we have here in America. Or back to the roots, the things that we fought for and tried to give other people when we were serving in special forces. These folks appreciate at a very high level the opportunity and the freedom that they have here in the States. And some of these folks are living with a whole family in a studio apartment in Astoria, and they are hustling. They are making it happen. They are saving their money. They are working overtime. You know, they're figuring out a way to get their small business or their multiple jobs to make it work and to realize the American dream. And if you look at CEOs of large companies now, even like at Microsoft and others, like these are first generation Americans who have shown up, had perspective, appreciated the opportunity they were given, and have busted their ass to make it happen.
Well, the owner of the Jaguars, Khan.
Yeah.
I mean, just from Pakistan. I mean, it's amazing what you can do.
Yeah, and look, I'm not here to get down on the sort of fat, lazy, you know, entitled population. Like I don't want to have a conversation about that right now, but I would like to at least highlight the fact that there are a lot of folks that are here and recognize that we are imperfect and that we have our challenges, but they are taking the opportunity that's given and they are hammering it every day, and they are making something out of themselves, and they're making a life for their families. And I just think that we would all be better off if we had sort of that, you know, 600 square foot family of 4, you know, 2 jobs kind of hustle that you see in New York City that I used to I didn't understand it. I didn't understand or appreciate what was going on there. But, you know, the more I've lived in places where people are just kind of like getting in their car and driving to the mall and complaining about having to park a little further than they wanted to from Dillard's, you know, or having to wait in line too long at Auntie Anne's to get their pretzel twists. Like, oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'll go off the rails if I get too deep into it. But like that, you know, you talk about
Get Blaine another Andy Gator, man, and he'll even forget that he's from America, man. He'll start talking about his roots in, you know, Afghanistan or something.
Yeah, but you want to talk about roots, right? Like, we talk about DOL, right, in the SF community.
To free the oppressed,
right? To free the oppressed. Like, that's what these guys in the funny green hats, they're getting on the back of a C-17 and they're flying to Colombia, the Philippines, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria.
All the worst places in the world, and then the places that are slightly nicer than that.
Yeah, they're going there and they're putting their own ass on the line. They're spending time away from their family, and they're making these sacrifices so that, sure, that we can live a little bit more comfortably and under a little bit of a thicker blanket of protection here in America, but also so that those people can have an opportunity to have some of what we have here. And until you've seen that and you've experienced that, I don't think you can have full perspective over how good things are here. And that's why we'll pass on the PR firm that just wants to make us explode on the back of some story that's not genuine to us, or have Jason and I on Fox News or CNN on a regular basis talking about gun control, because I don't care if we sell 5 more rucksacks today.
It's not that we don't have thoughts. It's just that it's not. It's just not the right fit for what we're trying to do. It's too polarizing.
Yeah. And we're not trying to avoid being polarizing for the sake of our brand. We're trying to avoid being polarizing because we want to invite everybody in. We want to be truly inclusive. What's truly polarizing is to say, hey, we want to create a new fitness category called Rucking, which is the foundation of special forces training. And some people look at you like you got a dick on your forehead when you tell them that this is your goal, right? It's like, no, that's never going to happen, right? Okay, there's a trillion people in your life too that always say that's never going to happen, right? They're those people. Those are the people that are the you're never going to do that people. And like
you
everything great, by the way.
Yeah, you just sort of take them and you say, hey, thanks.
Like America,
right?
By the way.
Yeah,
that little experiment's never going to work.
It's never going to work. America, that's ridiculous. In fact, we're going to go to war with you, said Great Britain, to prove that it's never going to work because you're ours, bitches. And we said, nope, actually we're not.
With that. Bomber.
Yes.
Let's take some notes from the audience here. What do we got today?
Got some cool shit.
I know you got some good stuff today.
Just
bring it on up.
Look at all this.
Here.
Oh, wow. That's a good move.
Wow.
Y'all didn't even know I could do that.
What
Have
kind
some
of
good questions?
What do you got there in your koozie?
I'm drinking the
Jenny.
Genesis
The Jenny.
Jenny cream
The green
ale.
Jenny.
You got this is a legitimate koozie. Oh, it's a Yeti. I should have known.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about Yeti around here lately, hasn't there?
A lot of Yeti talk.
It's big in the Southeast. Is it? I don't think it's that big in New
You
York
guys tell us.
City.
I don't know. I mean, we're in the Southeast, so we're a little biased.
In the oil field, that's if you ain't got a Yeti.
Yeah, so
Come
New
back.
York City, you know how many Yetis I saw? 0.
I don't
Right?
think they know what a Yeti is up there.
I mean, it just,
Sasquatch.
I don't know that that's the case. That's it's like my experience, man.
Well, it's
Wow.
like your opinion, man. All right, Bomber.
As
What's
a
up?
book of love, which I told y'all about, we get a lot of cool stuff sent in to GORUCK, to Scars and stuff. And this was sent in by Crystal. It's really cool. She made this in the 6th grade while she was living in Canada. And now she's a Florida resident. It's about Veterans Day.
So it's a split flag Canadian,
Stick to the old-
Canadian, U.S. It's cool. Attention
She
bomber.
sent that
That's
in,
good.
and she wanted us to have that here. So I've got this book, and there's a lot of cool things that got sent here. And I like to save them. It'll make a good story one day.
Yeah, that will be coming to a YouTube channel sometime soon. Is Bomber going through the 3-ring binder of love with all the handwritten notes and cool stuff that people have sent into us. Like it's from koozies to 6th grade art projects, which I don't even know how old that is. Like
a lot of times we get to tie it back into rucking is people say, hey, how can we do more? How can we help more? And really, I mean, it's fine to say, hey, tell your friends to go buy some ruck or whatever, right? I mean, that's not where our heart lies. It's sort of, if you say, hey, go grab someone and go for a ruck with them. Tell them to bring their JanSport or whatever. Go, doesn't matter, right? Especially out of the gates. Go for a walk in your neighborhood. It's called rucking. Do a couple miles together, chat with each other. This is sort of the empowerment theme that we're about. We empower people to make their lives a little bit richer, better. So that's what you can do. Go get your buddy like this, go for a ruck, and that's good. That's good for us. I mean, we're doing pretty well, you know?
Yeah.
Life's good.
Life is good. And if you want to send beer,
Yeah, if you want to send beer, that's cool
fine
too.
I will at least drink it.
Andy Gator, he'll forget where he's from.
Yeah, holy cow.
It's good. That's
Louisiana.
Louisiana.
All right.
Okay, Jason, other cities for the 50 miler. Will it come to Jack's Beach, and then what other cities are you planning?
Some talk on this. Yeah, so we sort of wanted to see, so with the GORUCK 50 miler Star Course, just launched in DC May 18th and 19th. Blaine and I are both participants. Are we participating together, or are we going to sort of...
I think the plan was for me, you, and JJ Pinter from Team RWB to be on a 3-person team together.
Okay.
But I'm happy to entertain.
If there's a
whoever has-
charity element to some other way to do it, I'm happy to do that too. I mean, I don't need to win. I want to win, but I don't need to win, right?
Last week we talked about competition on the GORUCK
Yes.
show.
I don't need to win, but I would like to win. I'd like to stack my team like Luke MC did, you know? But, you know, it's sort of...
That was the best meme of the week. Was Luke talking about had a 50-year-old guy and a teenage kid. That was listen, you guys, you won fair and square. You did an awesome job. End of discussion.
So we sort of want to see what reaction is. I mean, we view this as a sort of a pillar, an anchor, a premier rucking event, and no apologies as a just rucking event. You go do 50 miles with 20 pounds on your back. Let me know how you feel after that. I don't know how I'll feel. I've never done it before.
I've never done it either. I'm
so
sort of excited to find out, but it's gonna.
So we view it as this is a pillar event, and you know, next year you could imagine a lot more cities. Maybe even this year. I mean, I would love to see it in San Francisco and Austin or Dallas and you know California or Southern California. I mean,
California's not a city.
Yeah, I know.
Just like Africa's not a country.
Yeah, I know. Well, the Africa not being a country thing, that's like your
Jeopardy.
That's like your opinion, man.
South Africa, I guess.
Jason had some Andy Gator too.
Yeah, so we hope we're going to see. Bottom line,
you all vote.
Yeah,
you vote not only with your wallets but with your feet.
Ooh, really, with your feet on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we hope lots of cities, and you know, we could go different distances. We could potentially go more accessible distances in a wider range of cities in the future. I could see a 25-mile star course or a 20-mile star course someday, but we're going to set the bar high, paying homage to Teddy Roosevelt and JFK, two of our favorite presidents, who both felt that as an American, certainly as a soldier, you should be able to cover 50 miles in 20 hours with your gear. And so we're going to do that first and kind of anchor it off that, and then, yeah, hopefully a lot more.
I mean, this idea that our lives are in this vast and shallow world of our phones is sort of doing a disservice to our bodies. Without sort of combining the brain and the body, you're missing out on a big part of it. We're missing out on a big part of it. So we want to be part of the solution, part of the inspiration for getting more people out, moving more. And if that means setting a challenge. I mean, look, I've rucked a lot in my life, yes. I've never done a 50-miler. So, you know, I don't know how this is going to go. I mean,
don't you need that, though?
Yeah.
That's kind of the point, right?
That's the point.
If you're not doing something every so often, that gives you kind of the butterflies, or you're not sure if you're going to be successful at it, then you're kind of missing the whole point. And I think you have to start with the aspirational one, push yourself a little bit, and we'll see where we go from there. But
yeah, I mean, the stories that start out with no shit, there I was on my couch eating Cheetos, watching, you know, Judge Judy. I mean, like, send me to some other party, so quote party, right? That's not a story. The time when I did something awesome that I didn't really know how it was going to turn out, that's where the stories come from.
Yeah, and your point about there's this common narrative about how we're all just sort of an inch deep and a mile wide, and we're all glued to our phones. And look, I think that we're here to kind of combat that, because that is a thing, and I think there should be less of that. But I think what this 50-mile will also shine a light on is that not everybody is like that. Yeah. It might be a pervasive problem, but it's not all-encompassing. I know lots of dudes, and you do too, that are not stuck in their phones, that are not lame, that are not on the couch, that are willing to sack up and do 50 miles in 20 hours. I know a lot of those dudes, and I hope they all show up in DC in May. But like, I think that's, do we want to inspire people to sort of do more, be more, get off the couch? Yeah, sure, fine. But I also would like to highlight the fact that there are a lot of really rad, really hard people that still live in America, and let's bring those people out. And they can be an inspiration to everybody else, rather than like just
it's the empowerment thing we talked about earlier. Yes. You get these people, and every person has their own sort of circle of friends and family and people that they're a part of each other's lives. And so the more of those people that we're able to influence and empower, then they're an inspiration in their circles. And that's living to me.
Yeah, listen, America, there's a reason that more people every year now are finishing marathons. and are finishing Ironman triathlons and are finishing ultramarathons than ever. Like, that's a real thing. We might feel like there's more people on the couch in our phones, but there are also more people lacing up and doing these hard things. So, we're just trying to provide another opportunity for people to do that. So it won't be easy.
No.
But
50. Hey, that 50 miler was easy, said no one ever.
Ever.
I don't think.
The immersion and constellation events, 6 versus 12 hours. Thoughts on those? A lot of people are asking the difference in them.
Yeah, so I mean, in very, very general terms, the 6 hour versus the 12 hour, the fundamentals are always important and they always apply. And so the 6 hour is going to be, you are going to get steeped in the fundamentals of those respective environments. So whether it's urban survival, water survival, wilderness survival, in the 6 hour version, you are going to get the fundamentals, the most important part of this stuff. You're going to understand them, you're going to get a chance to apply them, and you're going to walk away feeling more confident and competent in those fundamentals. And that is great. Because we have the 6 hour version, in the 12 hour version, you get sort of a refresher on the fundamentals, because fundamentals are always important. If we go to the range, we're always going to shoot from the 5 meter line, from the draw, slow aim fire. We're always going to do that. But then we're going to progress quickly into more advanced skills that are going to just take our knowledge and our confidence that much higher. So in the 12 hour versions, you're going to get a whole new set of skills, a lot of new skills that are a little bit more advanced and maybe a little bit sort of, I don't know, a little bit more cool. Some stuff that you're not going to learn at your Boy Scout camp or.
These events, immersion doesn't exist out there. There's no real
when are you going to spend 12 hours in the water with some recon Marines and Navy SEALs and Army combat divers learning fundamental advanced skills on water survival and maritime navigation? Like, there's nowhere else to do that.
Which translates into confidence in the water, which translates into empowerment.
Sure. So they're both, I'm clearly biased. They're both great. The 6 hour, if you've been to none of these courses, whether it's Constellation, Immersion, or Expedition, the 6 hour version I would highly recommend because the fundamentals are super important and you want to get really solid on those. If you've done that and you want to do it back to back with the 12, that's cool. Or if you've done it before and you feel great, do the 12 and get the more advanced skills. But in terms of the difference, hardcore fundamentals in the 6 hour, advanced skills with the application of all of them in the 12 hour, but either way, you're not going to go wrong. And if you're new to it, we're going to take care of you either way.
Rich, one of my favorite coasties, asked, what are your thoughts on GORUCK success if there was no social media?
So I think GORUCK is actually a business or a movement that would, if there were no social media, meaning that our competitors wouldn't have social media too, I think GORUCK would actually be a more successful business probably relative to any competitors than it is now, because social media has been something that's fueled our growth, and our community kind of lives there to some degree, but the word of mouth, the depth of the community, and the number of people that come to GORUCK because their buddy drugged them or convinced them to do it, I think is a much higher percentage than most businesses or experiences that are out there. So maybe we wouldn't be like what we are today without social media. But I think if the playing field were leveled, and I actually think GORUCK would be positioned probably further ahead in some respects, because
relative, but maybe less absolute growth.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're okay at digital marketing. We're okay at social media. We do those things. We're probably better than okay. But there are other organizations, other brands that are spending more, that are doing more, that are growing more rapidly based on their ability to leverage the digital and the social media tools. And we want to be better at that. It's not that we don't care about it, but that's not the strength of how our brand and our community has grown. So without it, I think I don't think we'd be worse off at all. If anything, we'd be better. What do you think? You've been doing it longer than I have.
Yeah, I've never thought about it from your perspective relative to others. It's a tool. We've embraced the tool. So I think it's helped for sure. But, I also still remember all my grandparents' house phone numbers. all 3 sets of grandparents. I know all of them, right? Because I used to call them a lot. And, you know, that's just how you sort of did things before that. And I remember all their addresses because I used to write them letters. And those are just the things that's how people used to communicate. And when you had more time, not swiping down, pretending like someone else is leading some perfect life.
You and I only swipe up and down. You and I don't do any left or right swiping, just for the record.
Yeah, I don't. I remember it was a couple months or 6 months ago. Everyone kept talking about swipe right. I'm like, what is swipe right?
Somebody clue me in. Is that good?
I'm like that old man. I'm like that old man at some company. Like, oh, can someone just type this up for me? Right? I mean, it's ridiculous. But I didn't know what that's a real thing. You know, swipe right, swipe left, whatever. Anyway, so I think that ultimately it's a great tool. And to go back to your notes earlier about our roots in Special Forces is, if there's a new great tool that's going to help you, embrace it or suffer the consequences, and don't bitch about what you don't embrace. So we've embraced it, and you know, it's worked. But you know, I think you're right as well, where we would have done better than your average bear out there, just because word of mouth. I mean, people are eager to tell other people, their friends, about this great experience they had.
Yep.
Okay, John said to kill that 5K he thought that it was great for introducing new folks. I know that went away. I've used the light as introducing GRK.
Yeah, so we would just rather empower you to do a 5K with your neighbor without us having to produce it. I mean, ultimately, if 5,000 or 10,000 people would have shown up at all of them, we'd still be doing lots of them, and we'd have a lot more distances, and we'd do them in other interesting places. But you know, it just, the economics of the business didn't work. So it was one of those sort of fail fast things, and not fail from the perspective of we didn't enjoy it. I mean, you know, it was fun. I had fun, right?
Yeah.
But
I did the second ever one.
Yeah, in Tampa, you did really well. Did you win, or did you almost win?
I think I got third place in the whatever.
I think you got a GORUCK gift card, a little bit of GORUCK cash.
I never used it either. I never used it because you sent me a GR1.
Yeah, well, that's
back
cool.
in the day.
Yeah,
which I then gave as a gift to Joe Quinn because he won. And anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry that I gave away my first GR1.
That's all right, Joe Quinn.
I think he gave it away too, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. God dang it.
Yeah.
We took you for granted, Jason.
It's all right. It happens.
So
not for
another
forever,
thing you can do, though, which we're actually doing around here, is that you're welcome to go put on your ruck and hit the local 5K with your friends. That's a pretty fun thing to do, actually. We've done it several times, and I would recommend that you guys.
It's way more fun than when the runners see you doing it. They're like, that looks a lot more fun.
Yeah, and by the way, there are established races, even at like the half marathon and marathon distance now, thanks to Tim and the crew at F3 and others, where there's a legit official rucking division in events now. So that is really awesome. And you know, Jason mentioned the economics of it, and I remember this from my old job. Putting on a race is it's a bear. You know, you've got to do all the logistics and the permits and the timing and the bibs and the gift bags and all that. It's a big lift, and the economics are generally pretty poor if you don't have real sponsors that are kind of
like the law firm
of your
town.
Like you need that, or it's very hard to break even on that kind of thing. And when you talk about the man hours and things that go into it, you know, even breaking even is not really breaking even because it's you're taking time away from other things you want to work on. But what I love and what we're seeing more, and I'm convinced is going to be a very normal thing in the future, and it's up to you guys actually to kind of lobby for this, is for there to be a rucking division in your local 5K, 10K, or marathon. And that's going to happen. And we'll help push from our end, but you guys have to push from your end. And then you don't need to kill that 5K anymore. You just have an opportunity to go out and ruck whatever event's kind of coming through your town. And selfishly, from our perspective, that's awesome for us because more people are rucking. And
strategically with the GORUCK 50-miler Star Course, it's sort of the opposite approach. I mean, it's always easy to look back and say, I wish we would have done this first.
But as we noted on the whiteboard over here, experience, specifically pain.
Pain is such a great teacher, man. Pain is the best. You got to learn it yourself. And so, anchoring up at something that's a little bit more aspirational. I mean, you doing a 5K with a ruck on 45 pounds, I mean, that's not aspirational for you.
Sure.
Right? There's not this element of, oh, I don't know if I can do it or anything like that. It's, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it as fast as I can, and we'll see how it...
Or like Lee ran the 5-miler with his ruck on because he had to get back to watch the Jags game, so he ran the whole time with it.
Do not run with a rucksack on. We do not promote that, but this happens.
He was feeling pretty good about himself, though, as he was like passing runners. And like, I got a ruck on my back.
So we kind of wanted to anchor something that's a little bit higher up, and you will watch this over, 2019, you'll probably see some more accessible distances, 2020 maybe even more after that. But, the Star Course is here to stay in my book. It's operationally, it works for us, just from the economics of it. There's no cops and traffic cones and sort of stopping traffic and stuff.
It's inflatable art.
It's not. That's not what this is.
The timing.
But it is a great experience that you get. It's probably better because of that. It's sort of like, do you want to go to the chain restaurant, or do you want to go to the sort of locals restaurant? Right. I always the locals restaurant with that's a little bit more our speed. So locals for us means no big infrastructure, no big to do, but it still feels better.
And you'll earn it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have a political question?
Oh, good.
Good.
Someone asked if Monster was behind President Trump's initiative of making Rucking great again.
No. Next question.
That's beneath Monster's pay grade.
Yeah.
The GRT reunion, that's coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
A few people have asked about that.
You should go.
I'll be there in Austin.
Okay, for lots of reasons. Austin's an awesome city.
Yeah.
Number 1. Number 2, the event's going to be fun as hell. Number 3, we'll all be there for the after party. Formal, informal. It's going to be an awesome time. So you don't need to worry about that.
Will be there.
There you go. GORUCK Show Live that Thursday. Is it the 19th?
No. That'll be Saturday after the event.
Saturday after the event, because Thursday I got to be in Dallas.
Yeah.
Anyway.
He's humble. He's got this thing, there's a former president, maybe you've heard of him,
We're not getting political.
We're not getting, the President Bush, George W. Bush, is giving Blaine an award for his service after service, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And, when the president of the United States, and I don't care what they've got in the parentheses after their name, wants to do something, I mean, show some respect for the office, for what it represents. So, it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so you'll be in Dallas just before at the Bush Center.
Yeah, and look, the point of that whole thing too is that the communities that we've built at Team RWB and at GORUCK, like that's why the Bush Center and President Bush want for me to be there to get an award, is because it's an award for leadership, but there's no leadership without community, right? Without followership and without being able to build something. So
if you throw a party and nobody shows up, you're basically an asshole.
It doesn't matter how good the DJ was at your party, right? Or the ice sculpture or the booze, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter at all. So it has nothing to do with me and my ability to like hire a DJ and make an ice sculpture. It has everything to do with the fact that the Team RWB community and the GORUCK community are things that have both caught the attention of the Bush Center and President Bush specifically. And basically, I won't do an impersonation of him out of respect, but basically said, that's really cool. Yeah. And these are the things that we need more of. And so if veterans are going to take off the uniform and do something else with their life outside of a camouflage uniform, then these are the kinds of things that we would like for them to be working on. So that's sort of a big deal.
The other thing that's cool is that
big deal to you too.
Former presidents sort of become, the edges sort of dull, Oh. They just become...
I've been lucky. I've actually had a chance to meet briefly in some cases, less, more in depth in other cases, President Clinton, President Bush, and President Obama. And I would say all three of them are impressive in their own ways and have been very gracious in their own ways. And politics aside, it's pretty special, and it's definitely very cool to see these guys who are incredibly intelligent and gifted, in a lot of ways, but also are still very much engaged in things that are important to them in life beyond their service. So politics aside, I've been very impressed and very humbled to be even a small, tiny part of some of the work they're doing after they leave the Oval Office. It's a big deal, and we should all take a little bit of that into our own kind of daily lives.
So after you do that, then the GRT reunion, there's a service.
It's a very different.
It's a very different environment.
Loosen the ties.
Maybe Blaine will get President Bush to show up. You never know. He's a pretty persuasive guy.
Bush, if you're watching, sir, we'll take good care of you at the GRT reunion.
Yep.
Definitely come.
I know your knees are messed up, Mr. President, right, from all the running. So it's a lot different with Rucking. We'll take care of you. It's not a problem. And we'll show Austin a good time while we're at it. There's a service element to it. There's a big sort of reunion family element to it.
Speaking of roots, all my lieutenant time was spent at Fort Hood, 45 or 50 miles up the road from Austin, and I spent a lot of time on 6th Street, 4th Street, South Congress, you name it.
That $100 cooler looked empty, Bomber.
It did.
Looking forward to getting back to Austin and taking my wife there. She's never been.
Cool. Live. So the night before, we'll be at somewhere, a bar, a gathering, a field with a bunch of Lone Star,
Taco
right?
Cabana.
Because it's awesome. Then we'll wake up at some point, right? We'll do the event. There's a service component to it, and eventually we'll get to we'll finish the event. We'll get our patches. It'll be awesome. We'll be at some food trucks. We'll eat copious amounts of food. There'll be more Lone Star. And then we'll get to some Shiner Box, sure, right? And then if that's your speed, and then we'll maybe shower up, maybe not, and we'll see some live music in Austin, and then whatever happens from there, man.
Don't tell me.
Yeah, don't tell me. Cool. All right, one more or none?
One last
We're done.
thing, yes. It's a hurt feelings report on my behalf.
Yeah.
I do the Q&A portion of this every time, and no one has ever messaged me and said, good job, Bomber. Or we want to see more of you, Bomber. What they ask is they want more Lindsay. They want a whole show.
Yeah, they want Lindsay.
Lindsay's here.
They want a whole show about Lindsay. She's over there.
And they're all about Lindsay. So I'm a little bit hurt about that.
Well, I think we all should be upset about that.
Yeah. We've had Mickey B, BD, couple of we have some other guests planned in the future, and then they're all about Lindsay. I don't understand it. A little bit hurt.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah. Well, with the women's line coming out, we'll have to introduce Lindsay more fully. It's great.
Lindsay is sitting over there, and in no way, shape, or form is she trying to get off her chair to come over here. So There's your answer, people. Sorry.
Boom. All right. Well, good show. It was fun. I'm out of the country for the next 2, so have fun with that.
We'll figure it out.
It's in good hands. You guys are great. We'll probably be, way better without me.
You'll be rucking in the mountains.
Yeah, I'll be rucking in the mountains of Colombia.
All right. See you guys next time.